Hey Savvy Social Workers, in this video I am going to attempt to explain how to figure out positive and negative reinforcement and punishment. Let me disclaim that I am not totally out the woods with this myself, but I have found a way that I am hoping that will simplify it for you as it did for me, to help you be able to break down these type of questions and understand which is which. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to use this chart and, kind of color code it, because for me, that kind of helps me out. And y'all, I'm apologize in advance. It's the weekend and I'm at home trying to make this video. So my 6-year-old is in there on skates giving a concert. So if y'all hear it, just, go with it. All right. So we're going to have positive and negative, which is going to represent the stimulus. And so positive is going to be colored blue and negative is going to be colored yellow. And for reinforcement, which is the behavior we want to increase, we're going to go with green, as in, green go. We want to go with that behavior. And punishment is the behavior that we want to, decrease. So we're going to go with red for, stop that behavior. All right. And just as a side note, you're going to see the word aversive, which simply means making someone feel a strong dislike for something. Okay. So let's get into positive reinforcement. So remember that blue is for positive and reinforcement is for go. So that simply means that it works by presenting a motivating or reinforcing stimulus to the person after the desired behavior is exhibited, making the behavior green more likely to happen in the future. So we want to reinforce it. That's why it's in green. So an example of that would be the little boy receives $5 for every A he earns on his report card. So we are adding the $5, which again, if we're adding something that's positive, and then we want to increase that behavior, so that's going to be reinforcement. Okay, so positive punishment is, of course, the stimulus, which we have the positive, is when we are adding something, whether it be something good or negative or aversive. We're still adding. So remember, positive means we're adding. And so punishment, of course, the positive punishment works by presenting an aversive consequence after an undesired behavior is exhibited, making the behavior less likely. So the red, we want to try to stop or decrease this behavior. So example, a child touches a hot stove and feels the pain. So the child touching the hot stove is the behavior, okay? And the stimulus is, okay, he feels the pain. So, we don't want to do that anymore, okay? All right. Negative reinforcement occurs when a certain stimulus, usually an aversive stimulus, is removed after a particular behavior is exhibited. The likelihood of the particular behavior occurring again in the future is increased. So again, that lets me know reinforcement, because we are trying to increase the behavior in the future. So example would be a child can get up from the dinner table when she eats two bites of her broccoli. So we want to kind of foster or increase the fact that she's going to start eating her broccoli, or we're trying to get her to eat her broccoli. So that is going to be the reinforcement factor. However, we have to remove the stimulus. So we're taking something away. So as far as the stimulus, that means that, listen, you can't move. So we are not allowing her to get up. So we're taking something away from her, something she wants to do, something she desires. We are removing it because we're sure she want to get up from that table. So we're taking that away. We're removing that so that we can reinforce the behavior we really want to see in the future, which is her eating her broccoli. Negative punishment happens when a certain reinforcing stimulus is removed after a particular undesired behavior is exhibited, resulting in the behavior happening less often. So we're decreasing the behavior, which is why it's in red. Okay, remember, punishment, decrease, that is red. So negative punishment. A child fights with her brother, the behavior, and has her favorite toy taken away. That's going to be the reinforcing stimulus. We're going to remove that, okay? So the child is fighting with her brother, right? And so we take her toy, so we're removing the stimulus, which is her toy. We're taking it away because we want her to decrease this behavior, right? We want her to not fight with her brother. We want to see the behavior decrease. Remember, reinforcement and punishment has to do with the behavior. So her behavior is that she's fighting. We want that decrease, so we're going to punish that. And then negative and positive is about the stimulus. So we are we're taking away or inputting this negative stimulus by taking away her toy. And so that's going to be negative because we are taking away, and it's going to be punishment because this is a behavior that we want to see decreased. Okay, let's get into some examples. When a student finishes his classwork before the rest of the class, the teacher gives him more work to do. The student stops turning in his work before his classmates. This is an example of. Okay, so let's break this down and color code it. So let's take the first part. When a student finishes his classwork before the rest of the class, the teacher gives him more work to do. So she's adding a stimulus. Okay, the student stops turning in his work before his classmates. So this is the behavior. And so this is a decrease in behavior. So that is going to make it red, a punishment. So that tells me the teacher, by her giving him more, she's adding something. So that's positive. So we're going to eliminate the negative options. And then the student stops, which means he decreases the behavior, right? Because he don't want the teacher giving him all that work. So that is going to be positive punishment. And remember that positive punishment decreases the behavior by adding an unpleasant consequence. Next example. The teacher tells her class that anyone who gets an A on their final project doesn't have to take the final exam. Students in turn work extra hard on their final projects. This is an example of, okay, so let's take the first part. The teacher tells her class that anyone who gets an A on their final project does not have to take the final exam. So that means she is taking something away. She is taking away the final exam. The second part, the students in turn, they start working extra hard. So this is a behavior that we want to see increased. And so they start increasing their behavior. They start working extra hard. So when we put this negative, so that means we're going to cross out both positive options because we see that something was added. And then, of course, it's on the go side because this is a desired behavior. So it's going to be reinforcement. So negative reinforcement, okay? So you are removing something that they don't like, which is the final, so that you can increase a desired behavior, which is them working hard on their projects. So remember that negative reinforcement increases a behavior by taking away something unpleasant. In this case, it's the final exam. A father tells his son, "Good effort," and high-fives him whenever he makes an attempt to tie his own shoes. The son begins trying to tie his own shoes more often. This is an example of, okay, breaking it down. A father tells his son good effort and high-fives him whenever he makes an attempt to tie his own shoes. So he's adding something there. And so that's definitely going to be a positive. He's giving him high fives and this verbal praise. And so what happens is the son begins to try to tie his own shoes more often. So this is a desired behavior. So this, of course, is going to be reinforcement. So we know when we put that blue with that green, it's going to be positive reinforcement. So I'm going to eliminate both of the negatives, highlight positive reinforcement, And just remember that positive reinforcement increases behavior by adding a pleasant or desirable consequence. Steve's parents lock up the Wii for 48 hours if he throws the controller while playing. Steve stops throwing the controller as often. This is an example of, okay? So break it down. His parents, they lock up the Wii for 48 hours. So that means they are taking something away. So that lets me know that this is negative, right? Okay, so out the gate, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate both of those positive options because it just gives me less to think about. And then so the other side of that, Steve stops throwing the behavior. Steve stops throwing the controller as often. That is the behavior. So the behavior that was in question has decreased. So that lets me know that that's punishment. They gave a negative. They removed something, which is the Wii for 48 hours. They took something away, so that made it a negative, and that decreased his behavior of throwing that remote. So that's negative punishment. And just remember that negative punishment decreases the behavior by taking away or withholding something pleasant. Negative punishment decreases or decreases the behavior by taking something or withholding something that somebody really wants, okay, that they find pleasant. And I'm going to get my little colors together, y'all. Just bear with me. There we go. When a child leaves his comic book laying on the floor, his mom throws them in the trash. The child stops leaving his comic books on the floor. Okay, so again, when the child leaves his books on the floor, the mom throws them in the trash. So that means she's taking something away, which gives me a negative. Let me go ahead and delete these positive options. And so therefore, the child stops leaving them on the floor. So this means he decreases the behavior. So that means he is no longer leaving the comic books on the floor. So that behavior is decreased. So that was in result of a punishment. So we have negative. She takes something away from him. She takes that stimulus, which is the comic books. And so his behavior decreases. The said behavior for which she took that stimulus away, it begins to decrease. So that is equivalent to punishment. So yes, that is going to be negative punishment. And y'all, I know this is confusing because it's like, we're thinking punishment and just oh, you did something wrong, I'm going to punish you. Well, that is the case here, but it's also a little bit more in depth with that because you could also have a positive punishment where it wasn't so much that, you took something away from them to punish them, but you gave them a consequence as well to punish them. So just keep that at the forefront of your brains, that a negative punishment decreases the behavior by taking away or withholding something pleasant. John's teacher won't let him go to music class if he yells and splashes water in the boys' room beforehand. John starts getting even rowdier in the boys' room. This is an example of, okay? So now, John's teacher won't let him go to music class if he's yelling and splashing water, right? So that means John's teacher is removing something, which says to me this is going to be negative because he's taking something away from John. John starts getting even rowdier, so that means he increases that behavior, the said behavior, the yelling and splashing, whatever, he increases that. So now that tells me that's going to be reinforcement because the desired or the said behavior for which the stimulus would be removed just increased. It increased that behavior. So this is going to be a negative reinforcement situation. Don't seem like it was that effective, right? Remember that negative reinforcement increases a behavior by taking away something unpleasant. So this, y'all, is just like, to me, it says rebellion. Like, okay, you gonna take what I like away, or you gonna take what I like to do away. I'm gonna show you I'm gonna rebel even more. So that's negative reinforcement. You can sidebar that as rebellion. That's just how I see it. You don't have to agree. I just try to simplify stuff in my mind. And lastly, when Marcus comes in later than his curfew, his dad makes him drive his sisters to all their after school activities for a week. Marcus stopped missing curfew. This is an example of, okay, so when Marcus comes in later than his curfew, his dad makes him drive his sisters to all their activities. So now his dad is adding something, right? So yeah, so we're going to make that blue for positive, because positive is when we add something. And so because his dad added this, all of a sudden his behavior decreased. He stopped missing curfew. Okay, so his dad added this unpleasant stimulus, and it decreased the issue at hand. So that means that's punishment. So we're going to do positive punishment. So we're going to eliminate the negatives, of course, and this is going to be positive punishment. And just remember that positive punishment decreases the behavior by adding an unpleasant consequence. So he added this, activity of, now you got to drive your sisters everywhere they got to go. So he's probably imposing on Marcus's time and all of that. Marcus don't like that. So now Marcus is going to decrease his behavior and stop coming in late, stop missing curfew. So yes, I hope this was very helpful for y'all. Try to give an example or two of each one. Let me know in the comments if it was, anything resonated with you, if anything was simple enough for you to understand. Just kind of let me know your feedback. As always, thank y'all for watching, and let's go get that pass the savvy way.